That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, we already went through the must starts at every position. Now let's go over the guys that I think you need to be avoiding putting in your starting lineup in week 10. And let me remind y'all, maybe you're new to the videos, maybe you just have not been able to watch any today. We are actually doing a new format of a video. We're not necessarily changing up a lot, but at the end of every single video, I am taking one of the questions that was asked in the previous video, and I'm going to highlight it on the screen, give you all a shout out, answer your question. Just another way that I can give back to y'all and answer as many questions as possible. Y'all know I live stream every single night. I answer questions throughout the entire day on Patreon. I cannot tell y'all how many essays I've been writing on Patreon lately with everyone joining, everyone supporting the show. That's why we don't have ads on the show. That's why y'all don't have to hear me talk about Company X, Company Y, and use code FLOCK. Use code FLOCK, you get 50% off your first month. No, I mean, we're not doing that. Instead, we are just getting our support through Patreon, and I owe all of y'all a massive, massive thank you. Okay, so now let's get into this video and let's talk about 5 wide receivers I think you need to be avoiding putting in your starting lineup this week. And let's start it off with a very easy player to avoid, AJ Green. Guys, with AJ Green, I mainly want to bring him up on this list because I just want to kind of talk about him. Obviously, there's no way in hell we are putting AJ Green, currently the wide receiver 3 on the Cincinnati Bengals, in our starting lineup, and when they're going up against an elite defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But on top of that, guys, I think we have to kind of reevaluate our rest of season ranking on AJ Green. Y'all know this is a player that not many people in the flock actually have, just because we were significantly lower on him than consensus coming into the season. And ever since then, there's really been no reason to buy in because he's not showed us that he's been able to come back and be as talented as he was all the way back in 2018. I mean, throughout his entire NFL career, AJ Green is definitely a Hall of Fame player. Definitely a guy that was elite for a good duration, but that time is gone. Right now, we are seeing him get outplayed by both Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. And actually what we saw in week 8 before this team's bye was that Auden Tate started to outsnap AJ Green to the point where I think right now with AJ Green, we can look at this wide receiver continuing to fade out of the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And maybe really the only reason they were highlighting him a little bit earlier on in the season by having him run so many routes, get so many targets, is that they were trying to use him as a piece in a trade. We know that they have him on that franchise tag, so they definitely do not plan on building around AJ Green in the future. He's been so ineffective and by far and away the most inefficient wide receiver on the Cincinnati Bengals offense, to the point where I think coming out of the bye, we actually see him kind of split time with Auden Tate, because there's no real reason for the Cincinnati Bengals to try to rely on him because he's not going to be on the team next year. Very, very sad to say. Congrats on the fantastic career, AJ Green. But at this point, I think that he is actually droppable in fantasy football formats. And the last thing you ever want to be doing is playing him against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Okay, now our next wide receiver, someone's that a lot of people are a lot higher on than I am, Travis Fulgham. Guys, with Travis Fulgham, I know he has been fantastic over the past month for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has been exactly what the Eagles needed in terms of replacing some of those targets that were left out of the offense. But guys, let's keep in mind that this production from Travis Fulgham has been coming in games where there was no Dallas Goedert, where there was no Jalen Reagor, when there was no Deshaun Jackson, when there was no Alshon Jeffrey, when there was no Miles Sanders, when there was no Zach Ertz. I mean, this offense pretty much lost every single weapon that they had, to the point where Carson Wentz had no option but to target Travis Fulgham nonstop. I mean, just also, side note, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, how bad are you? How are you not getting on the field in this situation? Regardless, guys, the situation is actually now changing for the Philadelphia Eagles, where now they have Jalen Reagor coming back. Jalen Reagor is going to be 100% healthy coming out of bye. They have Dallas Goedert also going to be 100% healthy coming out of bye. I know both of these players played in week 8. Both of them did not necessarily look like options that were going to take over as the #1 target on the Philadelphia Eagles. But I will say, Jalen Reagor, a 21-year-old rookie in his first game back from injury, actually matched Travis Fulgham in targets. And then on top of that, guys, we are getting Miles Sanders back to this offense. We know Miles Sanders is a running back getting targets out of the backfield. And then to add insult to injury, Alshon Jeffrey's coming back. I don't think Alshon Jeffrey's going to be fantasy football reliable by any means, but I think if he can get on the field, he is going to be taking some of those targets. So Travis Fulgham is transitioning from a guy that was the #1 option by a mile, really the only option, to where there are now a ton of players in that offense that have a lot more pedigree than Travis Fulgham. I personally want to come out and say right away that Jalen Reagor is a much better wide receiver, and I think Jalen Reagor is going to take over as the wide receiver 1 here. Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders are both also going to be seeing a significant amount of usage. Okay, so now our next wide receiver, we are going to go right back to the Cincinnati Bengals, Tyler Boyd. Guys, with Tyler Boyd right now, I know he has been a consistent force in fantasy football, but I just kind of want to be a wet blanket on this party for Tyler Boyd in Week 10. I've gotten a lot of questions during the live streams asking about Tyler Boyd versus Terry McLaurin, Tyler Boyd versus Allen Robinson, and I'm sitting here, guys, like saying, what are y'all thinking here? I mean, Tyler Boyd, yes, is a good slot wide receiver. Yes, he actually was like number 7 in the NFL in targets in 2019, and he's continuing to prove that he has the talent with Joe Burrow in at quarterback. But at the end of the day, we know that this is not going to be a matchup where we can really take advantage of the Cincinnati Bengals skill position players. I think that we are going to end up seeing the overall offense capped just because this Pittsburgh Steelers unit is so good on the defensive side of the ball. I think we can honestly say that they are probably the best defense in the entire NFL. So the last thing I am wanting to do right now is jam in Tyler Boyd coming out of a bye week. I think they are going to be a little bit more volatile. I don't think he's anywhere near that range of an Allen Robinson or a Terry McLaurin. Okay, so now our next wide receiver who has made our sell high wide receiver video for pretty much the past month. Obviously, if you still have him on your team, you have not been listening. But DJ Moore, guys, DJ Moore is coming off a performance where he only saw 3 targets, and it's not like he wasn't seeing all the snaps. No, he's in there every single down for the Carolina Panthers offense. He has just not proved to be able to separate in 2020 so far. He's also been used as a deep threat wide receiver in a lot of their matchups, very similar to what we're seeing with Michael Gallup, with Christian Kirk, where, you know, you cannot necessarily rely on these deep threats. Now, DJ Moore going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think the Buccaneers focus in on shutting down DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson is actually going to be the wide receiver that I think can eat. We also know now that Curtis Samuel is emerging in this offense, there are going to be even less targets to go to DJ Moore. So all around, guys, I mean, just every sign is pointing at DJ Moore being a very bad play in Week 10. This is a wide receiver that I really wish y'all would have just listened and sold him high 3 weeks ago when you could have gotten a player like a Terry McLaurin or someone else in that range. But right now, he is dropping so fast in fantasy football. I do not want him on my roster. Okay, so now let's go to a wide receiver that I told you to buy low 2 weeks ago. Someone that I am so excited about us having on all of our rosters because we're going to be able to turn around and get a massive profit. But DJ Chark, guys, with DJ Chark, he's going up against the Green Bay Packers in Week 10. Yes, I know Jaire Alexander is currently in concussion protocol, but last I read, it sounds like Jaire Alexander may be good to go in Week 10. And if that is going to be the case, I think that this Jacksonville Jaguars offense is going to be atrocious. It looks like they are not going to have Laviska Shenault. It looks like Jaire Alexander is going to completely erase DJ Chark. And we know this is some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL at the moment. So yes, DJ Chark is coming off of a monstrous performance where he had 7 receptions, almost 150 yards, a touchdown, and double-digit targets. Guys, this is why I wanted us to trade for DJ Chark or pick him up off the waiver wire, because y'all were so low on him as the fantasy football community. And I was begging y'all saying, look at this wide receiver. He is an alpha wide receiver on his offense, extremely athletic. He's getting pretty much all the targets. And yeah, we wanted to identify him as a buy low, but right now with DJ Chark, just because of the state of the offense, I think that he's going to be a little bit more matchup dependent than we would like. So we are going to be looking to bench him, assuming that Jaire Alexander is good to go. Okay, so now let's get to our listener question. Y'all know we have these listener questions at the end of every single video. Thank you all so much who left comments on the last video. And I'll say real quick, I'm very sorry if I was unable to get to your question. We are going to continue to do this for pretty much every video that we ever make now. And if you want 100% of your questions answered by me directly through direct messages, easily, the best thing for you to do is just go and decide to support the show on Patreon. That's what allows me to come out here and not have to force feed y'all ads with the promo code FLOCK nonstop. Regardless, let's get to this question. And this question is coming from LP Luss. Thank you so much, man. Your question here is, I just traded A.J. Brown and Chase Edmonds for Aaron Jones. So here I'll say, guys, y'all know I love A.J. Brown, the talent. I mean, the most efficient wide receiver in 2019 so far, coming and bringing that same exact thing to the Tennessee Titans offense in 2020. But right now, Aaron Jones is going to be by far and away the best piece in this deal, just because we know he's already gone through his bye week. He's 100% healthy. He's going to be a top 5 locked and loaded running back for the rest of the season, knowing how hard it is to find that type of running back production, and that we may not have it with Chase Edmonds if Kenyon Drake either comes back in week 10 or week 11. I think that's a no-brainer trade, man. Congrats on the deal. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, please make sure you go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. It really, really helps us out, and I hope I'll see you on the live stream tonight.